Hi there, my lovelies. My name is Boomy, and you are watching my channel, Boomy Reactions. Now, today, guys, another miscellaneous video. I am using that word so much to describe videos at the moment. A random video. So this video has come as a request from the lovely Arctic Tron from my Patreon. Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much. Another great suggestion. So, yes, I am a massive fan of etymology. I know it's a weird thing to be a fan of, like the origin of words. I find very, very interesting. Now, most words, they normally have like a Latin or a Greek kind of origin, but we're going to look at the origin of the name of each of the states in the US. Now, I think a few of these are going to be named after monarchs on the British throne, given the time era and, you know, the European settlers. And so I think I know a handful of them already. So like Virginia, West Virginia. I always believed that was named after Elizabeth I, for example, the Virgin Queen. So I think that's going to be the origin of that one. And then I know we've got North and South Carolina. Now I know that is a like a derived version of Charles, who was, I think it was James's, King James was the monarch around the time, and they named the states for his sons. Or yeah, Charles. I think it was for Charles the First anyway. It might have been Charles the Second. Anyway, so yes, a handful of those states. Like Georgia is another one. I don't know whether the origin of that is actually King George or Saint George, but yes. And like New York, you know, when it was founded, it was the New York, and York is the city in the UK. I think there's going to be a handful of them. I think there's going to be a handful of these names that actually have like Native American or indigenous roots. So I don't think a handful of them, I don't think I'm going to be able to place because I don't know the language. And I think that's going to be the origin of the state name. And I think a few are possibly going to, maybe a few are French, the origin of French, like Louisiana, and Spanish as well. So let's have a look, shall we? We've done enough chit-chatting, you know what I'm like. And as ever, guys, if you're enjoying these reactions, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much, my lovelies. If you're interested, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link is over here. And if you're interested in supporting my channel any further, I have a Patreon account. If you could visit that, that would be amazing. Thank you, my lovelies. And the link is in the description below. So let's crack on with the video, shall we, guys? We go in alphabetically.
The United States of America are a federal country. Their territory is therefore divided into 50 states.
Yes.
48 continental plus Alaska and Hawaii. There's a joke that nobody can successfully name the 50 states in one sitting ever since Friends did an episode where Ross went crazy trying to figure it out.
Now I know I've mentioned this before. I remember in high school, my geography teacher got us to do this in what would be the 10th grade, so our year 9. So I would have been maybe kind of 14 at the time. And there was I always had a problem naming all of the states that began with M, because there's about 8 states, isn't there, that begin with M. And there was always 1 or 2 that I forgot. And it used to drive me absolutely bonkers. But I think I could, you know, I think I could name all 50 states. I couldn't do it, you know, one after the other alphabetically like that on cue. I'd have to maybe think about it or write them down, but I think I could do it.
In this video, we're not just going to list out the 50 states. We're going to understand why each of them has the name that it does.
Yes.
Let's start with some general characterizations. State names come from a variety of languages. 24 derive from indigenous languages of the Americas.
Oh, that's a lot more than I thought. Okay, cool.
The Native American idioms, although sometimes through European adaptations. 22 other state names derive from actual European languages and words. And the 6 remaining ones have unclear origins, but we'll get to those in a minute. Of the 50 states, 11 are named after an individual person. Of those 11, 7 are named in honor of European monarchs.
Oh, Washington. I know that one. That's named after George Washington. And let's have a look at the other ones. That was the first one that jumped to mind.
The 2 Carolinas, the 2 Virginias, Maryland, Louisiana, and Georgia. Over the years, several attempts have been made to name a state after one of the founding fathers or other great statesmen of US history. The state of Franklin, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Washington, with only the last one becoming a state name. The origin of the names vary a lot, depending on each state, as we'll see now.
So
but there is a somewhat common pattern in many of them, having the initial origin in a native tribal group of the region that led to the naming of a local river, then to a colonial territory that shared the name with the river, and then transitioning into statehood. So now let's go one by one and understand the known or predicted origin of each state. I posted timestamps in the description, by the way, so if you want to skip ahead to a specific state, you can use that. Starting with the two non-contiguous states. Alaska's name comes from a native language, Aleut,
that makes
spoken
sense.
in this chain of islands. They use the word Alasksak, which I'm mispronouncing, to describe the meaning of mainland, or if we literally translate it, the object towards which the action of the sea is directed. So the place where the waves hit, I guess. Alaska was first colonized by the Russian Empire, who then sold it to the United States. And this native word, Alyaska, the name the empire baptized their colony with in the year 1666. Hawaii's name origin, on the other hand, is less certain. The first year in which the usage of the name Hawaii is registered was in 1879, with the original spelling having an apostrophe between the I's. The origin is uncertain because there are two hypotheses. One is it coming from Hawaii, meaning place of the gods, the mythological homeland of the Polynesians, and the other is it being named after Wailoa, a legendary discoverer of the Hawaiian Islands. Moving to the continental United States, let's start in the west coast with California.
So it is
California
Hawaiian,
got its name from Spanish explorers, choosing the name Las Californias for the peninsula of Baja California and to Alta California, the region that became the present-day state of California. The name likely derived from the mythical island of California in the fictional story of Queen Calafia, as recorded in a book from the year 1510, The Adventures of Esplandian by Garci Rodriguez de Montalvo. In the story, this fictional queen fought alongside Muslim allies, and so some say the name may have been chosen by the author to be similar to the title of a Muslim leader, the Caliph. In 1846, the US conquered California from Mexico, and the Spanish name was kept. California.
I think that's a lovely origin of a name. It's named after a queen, Queen Khalifa. Oh, I think that sounds lovely.
California's name is therefore likely to have come from a book. Next to California is Nevada. Also having been named by the Spanish, most of these south/west states were first part of the Spanish colonial empire.
Nevada. Is that named after a person?
Then Mexico, and then finally conquered by the US. The name sort of means snow-covered and comes from the local mountain range, Sierra Nevada. Then Arizona. The state's name appears to originate from an earlier Spanish name, Arizonac, which derives from the O'odham name Alisonac, meaning small spring. O'odham was a native language, although some point out that the Basque language spoken in northern Spain also has the phrase Aritz Ona, which means the good oak, as there were numerous Basque sheep herders in the area, but it's more likely that the origin is the native word. Apparently, there is a misconception that the state's name originated from the Spanish term arida zona, meaning arid zone. This is considered a case of folk etymology and is not accurate, but if there's no official record, who knows? Further north is Oregon. The name origin of Oregon is disputed and therefore unknown. Do
you know what? Oregon, there is no specific word that jumps to mind. So is it, I don't know, is it named after someone? Did someone have a similar kind of surname that got shortened down? I don't know. I wouldn't even like to hazard a guess as to which, if it was a word, I would have no idea what language that word came from. Maybe it's native, possibly.
Are four options, it having Spanish, native, Portuguese, or French origin. The Spanish could have named it after the word oregano, referring to a plant which grows in the southern part of the region, after a stream in Spain called the Arroyo del Oregón, or after the term orejón, meaning big ear, with the J then turning into a G. The native origin possibility is evident in a 1765 petition to the British king. Robert Rogers, an American colonial frontiersman, wrote, and from thence the river called by the Indians, Oregon. In 1904, the local Sunset magazine argued the name came from a Portuguese explorer who had named it Ouve Agua, meaning hearing water, after the sound the waterfalls made, with that name then being adapted to Oragua and then Oregon. This one seems kind of a stretch, to be honest. Or the French possibility, where the name would come from the spelling of a local river as Waricon, although this would likely be an adaptation of the native name we saw in the second option. Above Oregon is the state of Washington.
So I'm going to say the origin sounds like collectively, it sounds like it's a bit native, doesn't it? Yeah, I think the Portuguese origin is a little bit of a stretch, but it sounds more likely that it's come from some kind of native, like the native word that they use there, and it's like a derived version of it. This is George Washington. I know this.
This one is pretty straightforward. All we need to do is look at the flag. It's named after George Washington, whose surname was, in turn, derived from the town of Washington in the historic county of Durham, England. Oddly, the territory was to be named Columbia after the Columbia River, but they found the name too similar to the District of Columbia, the national capital, which itself contains a city named Washington. And so, Washington became the only state named after a US president.
Oh, Washington's family have got roots from the UK, in the north of England. Okay.
East is Idaho. The name was initially proposed for the colonial territory of Colorado.
So I'm gonna, if I had to hazard a guess, I would say Idaho. It sounds, you know, to an outsider, it sounds like that might be like a native name for the state or the area.
After a supposed native term, but when people realized the native term didn't exist, they abandoned the idea. However, it was too late. Years later, it fell into common usage and ended up being proposed for the actual name of the territory. An alternative etymology attributes the name to the Apache word Idahe, which means enemy. An Apache term was also used by the Spanish to name Utah. Utah, but with a Y, from the Apache term Yuda, was the Spanish designation for the local people, which meant high. After becoming part of the US, the term was adapted into English, becoming Utah. Back south, New Mexico. This one is pretty straightforward too, from the Spanish Nuevo Mexico, meaning the New Mexico. In turn, the name Mexico comes from the Nahuatl native language, which referred to the Aztec people who founded the city of Tenochtitlan. Colorado was also named by the Spanish in 1743. It roughly means
Colorado, Spanish. I mean, the O on the end maybe makes me think it sounds quite Spanish, but Colorado. I can't think. I do not claim to be able to speak much Spanish, guys. I know a handful of words, but nothing's jumping to mind. Colorado. I don't know. I don't know.
It's colored, but in this case, it meant ruddy or red, originally referring to the Colorado River and its muddy color. Wyoming gets its...
Hang on. If it was the color red, is that saying Colorado? Color red. But then that's not the Spanish red, is it? Isn't it rojo or roja? So wouldn't it be color roja or color rojo? No? Or does the Colorado mean to be colored? I'm not sure now. Oh, it's interesting. Now, Wyoming, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't got a clue. Wyoming. Is it another native name, maybe?
Name from the Wyoming Valley in Pennsylvania, which itself got its name from a Munsee word, another native language. This one, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce, and it literally meant Big River Flat.
Big River Flat.
Montana is, again, super straightforward.
Before the narrator gives it away, I think I know this one. So this is the Spanish name for a mountain, isn't it? Montaña, I think it is. Though it's got the... I don't know the name of it, the line over the N, which makes the ñ sound. So Montaña, mountain?
Means mountain in Spanish. Montaña del Norte was the name given by the early Spanish explorers to the entire mountainous region of western North America. It was proposed by the US government for the territory that ended up becoming Idaho, but then changed as they thought it had no meaning, only to be proposed in 1864, once again, for what is now Montana. There were some complaints, again, especially because it was somewhat misleading, since Montana itself is not that mountainous, and the name of Shoshone, a native tribe, tribe was proposed, but the Committee of Territories ignored it and stuck with Montana. North and South Dakota have the same name minus the geographic indicator, named after the Dakota Sioux Native American tribes. And Dakota is actually also a word in the language of these people, literally meaning allies or friends. Nebraska's name comes from the...
Yeah, I was going to have absolutely no idea where the name Dakota came from. So we've got Nebraska. This is another one. I think this might be another native name. So noticing a little bit of a pattern that the native name states are in Central America. Is there a little bit of a pattern to it there? Or not?
Native Chiwer, specifically the word Nebraska, which literally means flattened water. It was first chosen as the name for the Nebraska River and then for the territory and state. I have to be honest, I was not aware so many states had a native origin in their names. Kansas is named after the Kansas River, which in turn was named after the Kansas Native Americans who lived along its banks. Tribe's name is often said to mean people of the south wind, although this was probably not the term's original meaning. In 1827, the Kansas Territory was established, choosing this name for that reason. Arkansas has a very similar name, just adding a prefix to the word, and the origin is also similar. The name Arkansas initially applied to the Arkansas River. It derives from a French term, a plural for their transliteration of Akansa, an Algonquin term for the Kapow people. Akansa is likely also the root term for Kansa, which then led to the Kansas name. Oklahoma is the putting together of two Choctaw words, Okla and Homa. In Choctaw, Okla means tribe or nation, and Homa means red, so Red Nation, although a rough translation could also be Indian territory. Moving on to the biggest state of the continental 48, Texas. Texas's name origin...
Texas. I reckon Texas has got a Mexican word origin going on in the name there. Not that I would have any idea what word it's derived from, but I think the origin might be Spanish.
Is in the word Taisha, which means friend in the native Caddo language. Oddly enough, during Spanish colonial rule in the 18th century, the area was briefly known as New Philippines, given that the Asian country was at the time also a Spanish colony. How weird would it be if that had stuck around, and Texas was, similarly to New York or New Jersey, now called New Philippines. Louisiana is again very straightforward, as was evident on the thumbnail of the video. It was named after Louis XIV, King of France from 1643 to 1715. When René Robert Cavelier claimed the territory for France, he named it La Louisiane. So roughly, Louis plus Yann carries the idea of related to Louis or land of Louis. Once part of the French colonial empire, the Louisiana territory stretched from the Atlantic coast in the south to just north of the present-day Canada border. The territory was sold by the French to the United States in 1803 for $15 million. That's 4 cents an acre. This would be equivalent to around $300 million in today's money, still a pretty cheap price for something that is equivalent to almost a third of the US's territory. Mississippi follows the trend of being named after the local river, the Mississippi, which defines its western boundary. European settlers named it after the Ojibwe word Mississippi, which translates to Great River. The Missouri River also led to the naming of the state of Missouri, and the river itself got its name from the indigenous Missouri natives. Following that method we saw was common at the start of the video: native tribe, river, colonial territory, and state. It is said that these specific natives were called the Wimisorita, meaning those who have dug out canoes. The name was adapted and westernized according to how they pronounced it. Moving on to Iowa. Iowa derives its name from the Iowa.
This is another one. I try to stop it in time. I think this is another, has native origins for the name. Mainly because I don't recognize the name as being anything English, French, or Spanish.
Ojibwe people, one of the many Native American nations whose territory was within the future state at the time of European colonization. Minnesota comes from the Native Dakota designation for the Minnesota River, which got its name from one of two words in Dakota: Minnesota, which means clear blue water, or Nisota, which means cloudy water. Kind of an odd choice of words considering they sound so similar but mean pretty much the exact opposite. Instead, the Dakota people demonstrated the name to early settlers by dropping milk into water and calling it Minnesota, which would mean the cloudy meaning would be the right one. Next, Wisconsin. The word Wisconsin originates from the name given to the Wisconsin River by one of the Algonquin-speaking tribes. French explorer Jacques Marquette was the first European to reach the Wisconsin River, arriving in 1673 and calling the river Meskousing. Subsequent French writers changed the spelling to Wisconsin, and over time this became the name for both the river and the surrounding lands.
So the word the Wisconsin, name given to the Wisconsin River by, okay, so it's a native word again for the river that runs through the state, and they've kind of taken the word and then it just kind of gets changed over time, doesn't it? So I suppose it's like maybe it's the European way of saying the river, or maybe they've mispronounced it or something, and then it just sticks.
And then it was adapted into English. When it comes to Illinois, the state is named for the French adaptation of a native word, Ilenwiwa, which means speak normally. This adaptation was made by early French Catholic missionaries and explorers who referred to the local natives as such. Eventually, the state was named after that tribe. Michigan has a similar story, a native name adapted and rephrased into French. However, this one didn't refer to the local population. It was just a term they used to define large water or large lake, Meshigami in the Ojibwe language. Let's jump to the northeast and go along the coast for the other ones, starting with Maine.
I love how many of these states have native origins. I think it's so cool. Even though maybe some of them have been not mistranslated, or they've just kind of changed, so I think maybe they should have, I don't know, like stuck to the original word for the river or the state, you know, how it was actually spoken in the native language. That would have been appropriate, I think, instead of a more kind of westernized version of the word that they thought was the name of the river.
The origin of the name Maine is unclear. One theory is that it was named after the French province of Maine. Another is that it derives from a practical nautical term, the mainland, and a more recent proposal is that it was named after the English village of Broadmain, which was the family estate of Sir Ferdinando Gorges, the colony's founder. A combination of the last two seems to be the most likely. New Hampshire.
So I was going to say New Hampshire. I think a lot of these states are going to be named after provinces or areas in France, UK, maybe one or two others. But yeah, I'm thinking New Hampshire. Hampshire is a county in the UK, and we've got New York as well.
Was named by English Captain John Mason, who had gotten a land patent to establish a colony in the area. After doing so, he named it New Hampshire after the county of Hampshire in England. Yes. Vermont's name comes from the combination of two French.
That's a French word, isn't it? Vermont, so green mountain, green mountain.
Words, vert and mont, green mountain. Vert in French means green and mount means mount or mountain, likely because of the green mountains that characterize the state. In fact, the short-lived independent Vermont Republic used as its ensign the Green Mountain Boys flag. Massachusetts takes us back into native origins. The Massachusetts. This is one of the states that I constantly misspell. I don't think there's a European origin to that word, so that makes me think that maybe it's native. A colony was named after the indigenous population, whose name likely came from a native word, Muswakshasut. I'm really sorry I'm mispronouncing all of these, but I just couldn't find the proper pronunciation. And this term directly translates to big mountain. Moving on to Rhode Island, despite its...
this is a funny one. So, I don't actually know what the origin of this state name is. However, doesn't it have an unusual name? So, like the Greek island, Rhodes. I wonder if it's got anything in common with it. So it kind of has like a Greek sounding origin here. Maybe it's something completely different.
name, most of Rhode Island is located on the mainland of the United States. Prior to 2020, the state's official name was State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, which was created after the merger of 4 colonial settlements. In 2020, they finally got rid of the plantations part because of the negative historical connotation, and if nothing else, because it's not a plantation anymore. It's not certain where the original name of Rhode Island came from, but 2 historical origins are presented as possibilities. One comes from explorer Giovanni da Verrazzano, who thought an offshore island of the region resembled the island of Rhodes off the coast of Greece, and the other has to do with a Dutch explorer, Adrian Blok, who described it as an island of reddish appearance, which was Godelijk Island in 17th century Dutch. This would have then been adapted into Rhode Island in English. Connecticut is once again of native origin.
Oh my gosh, right, Connecticut. That Rhode Island origin is really interesting. So it could be either or, couldn't it? Isn't it weird how some of these origins, even though they're contested by different historians or whoever it is that contests the origins of them, they still sound really similar. So maybe there's like an element of the origin being of like more than one place. I don't know, maybe both are right. Connecticut. I think that sounds native in origin, I think.
Kinnitukut was an Eastern Algonquin word which meant land on the long tidal river. New Jersey follows New Hampshire's example and is named after Jersey, the largest of the British Channel Islands, and the birthplace of one of the colony's 2 co-founders, Sir George de Carteret. However, the state was initially created under the name of New Kaisaria because the Roman name of the original Jersey was thought to have been this during the times of the Roman Empire. And New York continued.
Oh, so what was that? New Caesarea. Oh, what's that Latin word mean? It reminds me a little bit of the nearest big city to where I am here, which is Chester, in the UK, and the Roman word for Chester is Caia. Oh no, it's not. I think that's the Welsh word, and it means fortress. Hence the walls around Chester. If you're not sure, give it a visit. It's a very, very nice city. But yeah, what does that mean? Caesarea. Ooh, I'm interested. Now I'm gonna have to Google that.
Original Jersey was thought to have been this during the times of the Roman Empire, and New York continues this trend, being named after the then Duke of York, later King James II of England, so both after the English town and its Duke. Next to it is Pennsylvania, an English writer found.
Oh, now Pennsylvania is an unusual one. I think, it's just told us there, it was too slow. It's named after William Penn by the sound of it, but it does sound, I don't know, it does sound like Dutch in origin, doesn't it? With the Sylvania.
The province of Pennsylvania as an English colony. In honor of his father and probably his family in general, he named it Pennsylvania, combining their name, Penn, and the Latin term Sylvania, which translates as woodlands.
I'm so daft. I thought that it's English. Oh, the actual Sylvanian bit is actually English. I actually did not know that. That's very interesting.
Delaware gets its name from the Delaware River. The river itself was named after Lord Delaware, who was the first Governor General of the colony of Virginia. And Maryland, named by George Calvert, the first Baron of Baltimore, after Queen Henrietta Maria, wife of King Charles I of England. Although some Catholic scholars believe the Baron named the province after Mary, the mother of Jesus. Virginia.
I actually didn't know it was named after Charles's wife. Learn something new every day. I'm learning a lot today. Now, Virginia, this is the one. I think this is named after the Virgin Queen, Queen Elizabeth I. Thinking that around the time that it would have had a settlement, is it Jamestown in Virginia? So he was the next monarch that succeeded after Elizabeth.
Virginia was the first British colony in continental North America. Its name at the time meant Country of the Virgin, after Elizabeth I of England, who was known as the Virgin Queen because she never married. West Virginia obviously has the same origin, with the West referring to their possession over the western territories of the formerly larger Virginia state upon separation. Ohio gets its name from a...
That's a native origin, I reckon. Ohio. Oh, well, yeah, that's quite straightforward. Large creek.
Seneca native word, Ohio, meaning large creek, originally the name of both the Ohio and Allegheny rivers. Indiana's name is very simple and means the land of Indians, or simply Indian land. When in 1800, the United States Congress passed legislation to divide the Northwest Territory into two areas, it named the western section the Indiana Territory, perhaps to differentiate it from the east where further colonization by Europeans had taken place. Moving to Kentucky. In 1776, Virginia.
Ooh, Kentucky. This is another one. I think it might have native origins. I am really, really surprised at how many of the states have these native origins in their name. I think it's brilliant. It's I didn't expect it, but then again, what else did I think the word was? Because it doesn't sound like it has any other origin to me. I'm generally going with the mentality of, if it doesn't sound like it's a namesake, it doesn't sound English, Spanish, or French, then in my brain, I'm thinking, oh, it must be native. So it's like a process of elimination because I do not speak the languages.
Virginia's colony included most of England's claims in North America, and the counties beyond the Appalachian Mountains became known to Europeans as Kentucky County, named for the Kentucky River. The origin of the name is uncertain, but probably based on an Iroquois name meaning on the meadow. In the two native languages of Mohawk or Seneca, it was said as Kentucky or Gedage, respectively. Others have suggested the term Kenta-Aki, which could have come from an Algonquin language. Tennessee's name comes from the local Cherokee Sioux, which had a village called Tanasi, located on a river with the same name. The meaning of this name is unknown, although some accounts suggest it meant something like meeting place. Moving to the Carolinas, North and South Carolina were...
This one we have been over, I think, a little bit earlier on. So these were actually named after Charles, which doesn't sound anything like Charles, doesn't it? I think there's something to do with like the origin of the name of Charles. Maybe it's like Latin or Greek, and it sounds like, I don't know, I can't remember what it is. It's like coral something. Corallo. Like Carl.
One colony, Carolina, until 1729. By 1663, King Charles II of England granted a charter to start a new colony on the North American continent, and apparently he ordered it to be named Carolina in honor of his father, Charles I. Alabama was named after the Alabama River, which in turn was named by the Europeans due to the native Alabama tribe. In the native language, the word for a person of this specific native lineage is also Albamo. Georgia was named after British King George II. It is the feminine Latin form of George. It was also a reference to Saint George, whose name was derived from the Greek word Georgos.
This is an interesting one because I wasn't sure which one it was actually going to be. So they're saying the origin is both? Okay. Like when you come up with a state name and you want to name it after someone, two birds, one stone. The saint and the monarch. Okay, maybe that was their way of thinking.
Meaning farmer, from ge, which is earth, and ergon, which is work. And finally, Florida was named by the Spanish in 1514 from the Spanish term Florida, often referring to a place's abundance of flowers. The state's name specifically is a shortening of La Florida, the flowery one, or Pascua Florida, flowery Easter, although then just being simplified to Florida. It is the oldest surviving European given place name in the US. The United States also have some territories and a federal district. Very quickly, the name origins of those are in Washington, D.C. or District of Columbia. The name comes from Christopher Columbus, the famous European navigator. American Samoa is composed of two parts, Sa meaning sacred and Moa meaning center, so the name can mean holy center. Alternately, it can also mean place of the sacred Moa bird of Polynesian mythology. Guam comes from the local Chamorro language, specifically the word Guahan meaning what we have, a designation for the island first used in the Treaty of Paris of 1898. The Northern Mariana Islands were named by Spain in 1667 after Queen Mariana of Austria. Puerto Rico comes from the name the Spanish gave to the island in 1493, meaning rich port. Oddly enough, the island was originally named San Juan Bautista after St. John, and the capital city was named Puerto Rico, but eventually they switched the two. The island became Puerto Rico and the capital San Juan. The US Virgin Islands were also named in 1493, Islas Vírgenes, the name Christopher Columbus gave to them upon European discovery. And finally, the many US outlying islands have various origins. Baker Island and Wake Island, the Johnston Atoll and Kingman Reef were named after sea captains. Jarvis Island was named after 3 people, all named Jarvis, who discovered the island apparently. Midway Atoll was named for its location being approximately halfway between North America and Asia. Howland Island was named after a whaling ship, and the Palmyra Atoll was also named after the locally shipwrecked USS Palmyra, while Navassa Island comes from the Spanish term Nava, meaning plain, since the island is very flat. So that is the origin or supposed origin of each US state, territory, and federal district's names. Do you like the state names, or should some of them be renamed? Also, if new states are to exist, what should they be called? Should they maintain whatever the territory's name is now, or create a new one? Leave a comment letting me know, and I will see you next time for more general knowledge.
Ooh, okay. Pressing the wrong buttons here. There we go. There's some really, really interesting ones. That I think the biggest takeaway from me is I am surprised at how many of the states have got native language origins in their name, which, you know, rightly so, really, isn't it? I think I kind of agree with the narrator at the end here. I think if these lands had an original name that was in a different language or a different tongue, a native tongue, I think they really should have stuck with that name at the time, shouldn't they, really? Instead of just bursting in saying, right, I'm naming this on behalf of the King of England. Well, okay. How do you guys feel about that? Like, you know, living in the states that have origins to like Louisiana or Virginia, you know, I don't know. How do you feel about the origin of the names there? Is there a name that you would rather it be called, or are you not too fussed because, you know, you've just become accustomed to it? Of course you have, you know, you've grown up calling it Virginia or Louisiana. Why would you care either way? I'm not sure. Let me know how you feel about it, guys. So I really like the name of Florida. La Florida. I think that's so beautiful. And California, named after the Queen Khalifa. I think that sounds lovely. And the native names for the states, I think, sound really unusual to, you know, people from outside of the US. And I think they probably should have kept their names, shouldn't they, for a lot of the states that maybe got renamed or whichever. Yes. And then you've got the states, yeah, the ones that are named after monarchs. I don't know how I feel about that. It kind of feels like invading someone else's land and then naming it in a tongue that's literally nothing to do with its inhabitants. So, yeah, how do you feel about that? Have I opened a can of worms? I hope not. Yeah, interesting though. So, and then you've got the ones where they can't decide on the origin of them, which is really, really interesting. I'm sure these new historical theories and etymologists' theories come up all the time. So I imagine there's always a new theory coming up, which is very, very interesting. Anyway, guys, I hope you found that as interesting as I did. I'm saying that word an awful lot today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care of yourselves, guys, and I will see you next time. Much love. Bye-bye.